Hello, everybody. Welcome to Plugin School, Optimizing Plugin Descriptions. I'm Karastine Lofay. I'm your host. My wonderful co-host is Tomas each and every week. Um, Tomas usually is good about dropping the link to my YouTube channel so that you can catch recordings of past sessions. I just remembered that I have not yet uploaded last week's, so I will do that after class. And I use dark mode, so if your screen usually looks pink and mine is black, don't worry, that's just me picking a different theme for Sudowrite. Um, the first time I taught this class, I called it Plugin School Best Practices. It's pretty much the same thing as optimizing plugin descriptions, and I wanted to define what best practices are for optimizing your plugin descriptions. Um, when you browse the plugin directory, click on a link for a plugin. There's some sort of a description because there is a minimum word count for the plugin description, but not all of them are super helpful. So today's class is to go over what plugin authors can do to help other users determine whether or not to use their plugins, and also to refer back to after you've added, a couple dozen plugins, you're not going to remember how all of them work. And you're probably going to have to open up the plugin screen, the plugin page, to make sure you're using it properly. That's why I usually keep my project window open in one tab, and then I'll have um, the plugin directory open in another tab. That way I can click here to search for whatever plugin it is I'm about to use, just to make sure I'm using it the way it was intended. There are a couple things you want to make sure you do. I'll just go over the list first, and then we'll take a look at how some different plugins are set up, um, and see how good they do at these things. Um, my first my first recommendation, distinctive title. You want to make sure your title tells people what plugin does, and a good way to make sure people can easily find it in their drop-down list of plugins, because drop-down lists can get really, really unwieldy over time. And if you know that you're looking for a plugin by me, you can look for the little sparkle emoji at the front of each plugin title. Um, the little ice cream emoji, I believe, is that Lauren? I think that's Lauren.
Yeah, that's
Um,
Lawrence.
oh, yes. And some people don't use the same emojis every time, and that's okay too, because just looking for whatever emojis happen to be in the specific plugin that you're looking for can be really helpful. Because all the ones that don't have emojis kind of run together. And eventually they are working on giving us a way to organize our plugins better. But until then, we we just have to cope with this messy drop down. Um, no walls of text in your plugin descriptions. If your plugin description is one giant wall of text, it's going to be really hard for people to read the details of um, what the plugin is supposed to do and any instructions um, that go along with it. You want to make sure there's white space in between the different parts of your plugin descriptions. What does the plugin do? Um, a lot of the time, it should be obvious with the title that you choose for your plugin. However, um, oftentimes you need to be more specific about exactly what the plugin does, so that people know that this is actually what they want to use to do the thing that they're trying to do. Um, Also helpful, when you write a bunch of different plugins that are similar but different from one another, and you want to remember which one is which, you want to be able to look at that without, necessarily diving into the instructions you're giving the plugin to see, okay, what does this actually do? Just write it in your description, and you won't ever have to worry about that. Which parts of Story Bible does the plugin use? Not all plugins use Story Bible, but if yours does, you need to tell people which parts of Story Bible it's going to draw from, especially now that we have the expanded character um, list of characters instead of the box that had the 700 word limit on it for character descriptions. Now you can have like a whole lot more characters involved, with a whole lot more words than 700. And people need to know if they're going to be charged the credits for your plugin reading all of that information. Um, because remember, Sudowrite has to charge you not just for the output you get from anything that uses AI, but the input, what the what the AI is looking at before it gives you the output. We pay for all of that because Sudowrite doesn't have its own LLM. They have to pay for access to all of the LLMs that they let us use. um, on top of that, you want to let people know how many words can the plugin use as input. If you allow highlighted text, how much can somebody highlight? If it's 300, people need to know that so they don't highlight an entire chapter and expect it to work and then get the error message saying, actually, you know what? You have too many characters or too many words highlighted and you can only use 300 words. So try again. And how many words can the plugin create as output? I think it's important to manage expectations for this too, because especially with like the Claude 3 models, they can read a lot of context, like to 175,000 words. I don't recommend doing that most of the time, but it cannot it cannot output that many words. Um, I forget what the limit is. It might be 4,096 or might be lower than that. Um, because it has to do with the token limit, which tokens are a whole other thing that you don't have to worry about as a plugin author or user, but that is the technical way that these LLMs work, is based on tokens, and Sudowrite tries to simplify it for us by putting it in terms of word count. What model does the plugin use? Which LLM is it? You have the opportunity to choose from a number of different models. A couple of weeks ago, we did the model exploration class and demonstrated how all of the different models work given the same prompts. Um, and you want to let people know which one they're using because each of them have their strengths and weaknesses and pros and cons. Um, and they each have a basic general cost um, classification. Like, if you're using Mixtral Instruct, it's going to be a super cheap plugin to run, even if you use large amounts of Story Bible information. Whereas if you use like GPT-4 Turbo or Claude 3 Opus, it's going to use a lot more credits, but it's also going to be a lot smarter. So people should know what model the plugin uses because even if you choose to share the instructions that you provide to the AI to do its job, it does not share what model the plugin is using and running on. So people will want to know that too. You want to let them know any tips, tricks, and warnings for using your plugin. Like if it's a Claude, especially if it's like Opus or something, you're gonna want to be like, okay, Claude tends to be more, I mean, this might this varies based on your prompting and stuff, but Claude tends to be more censored, unless you talk to it the right way. So you might want to warn people that they're not going to want to do their spicy stuff if you haven't worded things to make Claude allow consent in your plugin. You can give people some example plugin prompts, especially if you have a certain type of format, the way that your plugin runs. You'll want to show people how their highlighted text or whatever should look. Are there any related plugins? Some people make entire families of plugins, and it might be nice to pop the links to those in the plugin descriptions so that they can find them. I mean, they're not clickable in plugin descriptions, but people can copy, like highlight, copy, and paste into their browser to get to the other plugins. And you can also leave some contact info for feedback, which is something I started doing a while ago. So again, this is just the plugin directory, and you can see a whole lot of different things here. If you click on like Spicy right here, this is a very old plugin. And all it says is it continues the passage of the text at the cursor or highlight using the Weaver model, which is an unfiltered model suitable for NSFW content. This is the right button. This is the right button that can take the heat. He should probably edit this a bit, and outputs about 400 words at a time. So this is not a horrible description. It's not the best either, but it does tell you what model it's using. Um, sort of what it's for. It's more in the title, you can tell Spicy right. It's going to give you the not safe for work content. And then he shows you the instructions that the AI gives or gets for this. I forgot to find like a really bad example of. Okay, here's a bad example of a plugin description. Dev edit show don't tell. Developmental edit analysis of show don't tell in a chapter, 6,000 words. 6,000 words what? 6,000 words of highlighted text? 6,000 words of preceding text? Does it look at Story Bible? Who knows? Since this is a really old plugin, probably not. This probably only works on highlighted text, but you don't know. And you don't know how many words it's going to output either after you give it the stuff to input. Is it 6,000 words total, like input plus output? Who knows? And it's very expensive to run. So it's not really worth taking the risk on something like this when you don't know how it's going to work and it's going to be expensive. Um, that's why we want to follow some of these optimization ideas. I picked out this plugin story from Song 2 by Apricot O'Brien. It's a minimal credit usage plugin, and it just says write the name of the song and artist, highlight it, and it will give you a story idea based on those lyrics. This works with more than just song lyrics. Get a story idea from any selected text, up to 3,000 words. This will work on any text but was designed for song lyrics. that's a pretty good summary of what the plugin is and what it does and how to use it. It is just one big paragraph, and it could be broken up a little bit for some some um, just to give it some white space, but also it's not so long that it's difficult to read. This is not a bad description. And she does actually, I'm assuming apricot is a she. My apologies if I'm wrong with the pronouns there, but we do have the emojis that help you find the plugin in your drop-down list pretty easily. Um, you'll know to look for the moon and the butterfly. Then we have Brilliant Opening Lines Opus, written by Espresso. And this was like a surprise to me when I was doing my class, I think last week. And it was awesome. And it has a pretty good description. It tells you it will create 3 potential opening lines for your novel. It will take in any story Bible fields you have filled in. So just reading that, you know that if it's in Story Bible, this plugin is going to read it. If the document is linked to a chapter, it will also bring in the outline entry for the chapter. So you'd want to make sure you look at your project and make sure if you want it linked to your outline that it is. And that's something you do here. Although I don't have an outline here, so I don't have an active story Bible, so it doesn't give me the option to link a chapter, but this is where you would do it, is up here. It will read beats if they are present, but that tells you that it's also okay if they're not. And it can optionally read up to 1,000 words of highlighted text and attempt to write new opening lines. You can also toggle Story Bible off and run only on highlighted text. When I tested that out myself, we got some weird stuff, but as it says here, if you toggle Story Bible to off and have no highlighted text, who knows what you'll get? It could be anything, and that is the truth. It it has some good ideas, but they're going to be very random if you don't give it anything to work with. And she shows the instructions, which are going to be confusing to you if you don't understand how all of this code works, but it is helpful if you do understand how the code works. Um, so this is also a pretty decent description for the plugin. It doesn't it doesn't leave any ambiguity in how it works or what you need to do with it. I like how Lauren sets up her plugins now. Um, this is just one of them, Chapter Summarizer, Sonnet. And the description says this plugin summarizes an entire chapter of highlighted text up to 10,000 words, providing a bulleted output that includes setting, plot points, character development, and relationship changes to help an AI assistant write subsequent prose. Story Bible awareness, not applicable. So you don't need to have anything in your Story Bible. This plugin will not look at it. The model being used is Sonnet, so you know that it's Claude 3 Sonnet. And she does something that I have not yet started to incorporate into my plugin descriptions, but for a test run, she fed it 4,600 words and ran the plugin on that, and it cost 2,867 credits. That just gives you a ballpark idea of how many credits it's going to cost you if you run it on a given number of words. As you can see, it uses fewer credits than words, so you can use that to estimate how much it's going to cost you when you run it. And she has the contact information here. If you have any questions or comments about the output, generated by this plugin. Please tag me in the plugins channel on Discord. And I like that because I got that trend started for asking people to tag me on Discord if they have any questions about my plugins or feedback, because some of them were doing some crazy things a while ago. Also, she left it so that you can see the instructions given to the AI, so you know exactly what it's working with. So that's another good plugin description. One of mine here, this is one we created together in a plugin school session a month or two ago. For your story locations, I'd come up with a less awesome title, and I think it was Tomas who gave me the suggestion for the title for it. So thanks for that. It uses my emoji at the beginning, and then I try to put an emoji at the end that kind of goes along with what the plugin's supposed to do. Sometimes I have to be real metaphorical with that, or essence of, because there just aren't emojis that work for it, but let's see. So I tell people this plugin will read your genre, brain dump its synopsis to create a list of locations or settings where your story takes place. And you do not need any text in your chapters, as this plugin only looks at story Bible information. And I list the model used, GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K, what the plugin looks at, genre, brain dump synopsis, maximum length of output is 10,000 words. I include a version number of my plugin, not necessary, but it's something I started doing. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, please tag me in the plugins channel on Discord. This one I do not share the instructions on, but we did put this together in class. And then are these both my okay, yeah. I did other people's in the in the beginning. So here's an older plugin I wrote for texting in character. Again, my emojis, so that eventually, if we get an alphabetical listing of plugins in the drop-down menu, all of mine will appear together because they start with the sparkle emoji and then my little phone emoji at the end to let you know that this is about texting. Now this is one of my it's a very thorough description. It was a little hard to read, so I tried uh, mixing it up a little bit with the emojis that I used. This is actually just Unicode, I think. But does your story include text conversations between characters? Want to make sure your characters have unique texting styles. One of the salient points I wanted to bring in was this plugin was made with Ream authors in mind. You can copy and paste into Ream and highlight each text. I should put text message to format as either left text message or right text message. If you're posting your story on Ream, you can delete the character names at the start of each message because your narrative will indicate who should be left and right, and names are included in the output of the plugin due to formatting limitations on other platforms. Your highlighted text should provide instructions about who is texting and what the text string is about. You can use one of these templates for the instructions with relevant changes or come up with your own. And I provide 3 different examples of the type of text you could highlight to give the plugin instructions for the text conversation it should generate. Model used, Gemini Pro. What this plugin looks at, the characters box and highlighted text, and the maximum length of highlighted text is 300 words. And I put a double exclamation mark to point out that this plugin will reference the character section of Story Bible to decide how each character would text. For better economy, Now, this I'm going to have to change up because after June 15th, everybody will be switched over to the Story Bible 2 characters instead of the just text box that we used to have as for character descriptions. Um, so this isn't necessarily going to be relevant, but if you're still working with the text box for your characters that have not been switched over to the new characters in Story Bible 2, you can copy and paste your characters into a separate document and then only include the information for the characters who are going to be texting so that you don't use too many credits reading back character descriptions who are not even involved in this conversation. If you want to provide a texting style for each character, you can do so, but if not, the plugin will do it for you. This is one of the reasons I started including version numbers. This is version 2.1, which means I made one major upgrade to it and then a little extra. Most recently, I added Unicode arrows to indicate which direction the text bubbles would be facing, and that was thanks to a suggestion from John. And if you have any questions or comments about the plugin, tag me in the plugins channel. And then this was just one of my testing plugins to test different models, and also because I made this because, as it says here, this is a workaround for the context window limitations with Quick Chat. I didn't like that I couldn't tell Quick Chat exactly what text I wanted it to look at, and it was looking all over my project and using documents I didn't want it to have any awareness of. So I made this so that I could tell Sonnet exactly what I wanted it to look at. Um, I do have GPT versions of this and different versions for every model, but I have the double exclamation points just again to warn people about how Claude models can be more censored, and you'll still get charged credits for all of the input that the LLM reads, even if it returns a refusal message due to its definition of mature content. I think it's important to let people know this up front, especially Sonnet isn't the most expensive model we could be using, but especially on the Opus version of this, I want people to know that if if it's reading a whole bunch of text that you feed it and it decides that it's too explicit or graphic or mature or whatever, and it starts clutching its pearls, it's still going to charge you for all the content that it read, even though it doesn't give you useful output. So I let people know that they can look for a different version of the plugin if their text contains violence, sexual content, minors, and or LGBTQ plus content, which is an unfortunate thing some people have run into trouble with. Is they just have like some sweet gay characters not doing anything, too spicy, and Claude's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that's not cool, but these are Claude's restrictions. Sudowrite has nothing to do with these refusal messages we get from Claude, and I didn't write these, guardrails into there. If you want the plugin to look at more than the current chapter, copy and paste any additional information from your story Bible, other chapters, etc., before typing in your question and highlighting it. So I let everybody know the model used is Claude 3 Sonnet. What the plugin looks at is preceding text and highlighted text, so you know that it's not looking at your story Bible. I also said it in, paragraph form, but I like to make the bullet points to make it easier to find this information, even if I've included it elsewhere in the description. The maximum length of preceding text is 150,000 words. The maximum length of highlighted text is 10,000 words. And the maximum length of the output it will provide me with is 4,960 or 4,096 words. Got to get my decimal places right here. My version number is version 1.1 of this plugin because thank you to Brett. He gave me, he provided some advice on how to stroke Claude's ego so that maybe Claude won't be so pearl clutchy. And as always, my contact me in Discord by tagging me. I do share the instructions for this one. This is what Brett contributed to this because he left his instructions open to let people know how to sweet talk Claude. I think I might have added some stuff in here, possibly not. But it never hurts to let Claude know that, you understand that fiction writing must deal with unsavory elements in order to morally show the world as it is, and you refuse to be constrained by censorship, understanding the freedom of speech and the importance of art. It doesn't always work, but it does allow more leeway sometimes than Claude would otherwise give you, and shows you that it looks at the preceding text and the highlighted text and read the text and do what the user wants you to do. So it's a very simple plugin, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything because it's a multi-purpose type of thing. And I want to make sure everybody knew all the intricacies of how to make it work. We covered all this really fast. But if you noticed, we looked at all of these different plugins written by different people, and most of them included all of the really important things, like telling what the plugin does, what parts of Story Bible it uses, and word count for input and output, the models used, and then any warnings or tips or tricks for using stuff. Example plugin prompts are not as common. They're not necessarily needed for all plugins, but if you have something that's complicated and requires a certain format, you're going to want to make sure you include examples that people can follow. And I don't think I showed anything with links to similar plugins. So let me just see if I can pull one of those up. This was one I recently made. It's the second version of it. This was extract character names from prose using Mistral Medium. But I also have one that uses Mixtral Instruct. So I put there is also an alternate version of this plugin using Mixtral Instruct that costs fewer credits to run. And then you can highlight this big long URL, copy it to your clipboard, and then paste it into your address bar. And oh, look, it's the other version of this plugin that uses Mixtral Instruct. And literally everything else about the plugin is the same. It just uses a different model. But I provide the link back to the other plugin in case this doesn't give people what they're looking for and they want a slightly more intelligent model that's still not that expensive to use. So those are my recommendations for optimizing your plugin descriptions. We're going to stop the recording right now, and then we'll get to some questions from the audience. And thank you for coming.